Thanks for tuning in to today's broadcast.
Church on the Rock. Church on the Rock. Church on the Rock. And we're going to start here with Matthew 16. Preparing this message, which, highlights, the value of us being in and around God's house and the emphasis of, why church was established and what the church's significance in our life. And interesting enough, the thing is, the goal is for us to give revelation, but I got a lot of revelation. And really, some of it, as you will see, harmonizes what we were talking about on Sunday, resting in the reality of God. But let's go here in Matthew 16. We'll start with verse 13. It says, when Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, some say thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. And he said unto them, but whom say ye that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, that's son of John. It says, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which art in heaven. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter. Upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And so here he's saying that, he says, okay, I've been hearing people talk about me. Jesus is like, well, he says, what they saying? And he says, well, some says, you're John the Baptist. Some says you're Elijah, which is a great prophet. Some say you're Jeremiah, He says, all right, so who do y'all say that I am? And then Peter said, well, you're Christ, Son of the living God. Now, everybody that was mentioned previous to that were people that had already existed, so people they could compare him to. So he has to be like this person or like that person. But when Peter opened his mouth, what he spoke, no one had talked about before. There was no Christ. There hadn't been a Messiah. And he says, oh, you're blessed. He said, because flesh and blood didn't reveal that to you. The only way you could have known that, God had to reveal that to you. The only way you could have that information or that revelation, God had to reveal to you. So what he was saying is, he said flesh and blood couldn't reveal that to you. So he said, look, flesh and blood can't take your mind deep enough to discover the treasures of God. The message said, it said books from teachers couldn't reveal that to you. He says, so there's not enough natural information that could have helped you to discover what God wants you to see, right? So he says, thou art Peter. And the interesting thing is he said, thou art Peter. So some of us has been around church, knows what Peter means. But let's just get into it. Now, his name was Simon Bar-Jonah, Simon, the son of John. That was his name. So there was always son of somebody, So Keith, son of Bradley, but he said, you are Peter. What he was saying is, okay, what just happened to you is representative of something. So he says, you are Peter, basically saying you're a large rock. Peter represents a large rock. He says, you're a large rock. He said, look, the message says, I'm going to tell you, because the Lord showed you who I am, because you got a revelation of who I really am. See, he says, everything is going to be hinged on this. He says, so guess what? I'm going to use that same principle to show you who you really are. he says, and you really are the rock. But Peter means Petra, it means a large rock. So he basically says, if we pull from our teaching on Sunday, he basically says, I'm going to tell you the truth, who you are. You started out birthed in this life, Simon, son of John. But see, that's not the truth of who you are. The final truth means final reality. We talked about that Sunday. So, John chapter 8, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So what he's saying is, he says, oh, I'm about to show you who you are. So that's going to release you in a whole nother way, because now from today forward, you're operating, playing off of what I'm about to tell you. So you're a large rock. That's who you really are. That's the truth. That's the truth. He says, now the message says, I will tell you who you are, the truth. He says, but upon this rock, look, now I'm going to tell you who you are, but upon this rock, this revelation of this huge rock. And okay, so he was saying, you're a large rock, but upon this huge rock is how I'm going to build my church. So what he was saying is, the church represents, the one version says, like the Rock of Gibraltar. The Rock of Gibraltar is one in Wisconsin, but that's not really the rock. The real one is overseas. And it's a huge, humongous rock. And he said, so basically saying you're a rock, and so you discovering who you are fits in you discovering basically the kingdom, the rock, the ultimate rock. So you're a rock that fits into a rock. But you have to discover who you are, but then also discover where you fit. He said, now my whole church is going to be built on this. It's going to be built on everybody knowing who they are and knowing their fit. That's how we're going to operate. So let's just keep on reading here. He says, but he said, upon this rock, and it's revelation knowledge from God of not only who you are, but your fit in the huge rock is how we'll build the church. The church is built on a rock, a solid foundation of clear revelation of design and purpose. Now, because when we live this life, there's so many things that can distract us. You should do it like this. I think you should do this. Well, this is a good idea. You got cousins, aunts, moms, dads, sisters, brothers, and friends. Everybody's always telling us what we should and should not do, who we are. But ultimately, God and his people of God are constant pictures for us to discover who we actually are. Because ultimately, everything is waiting on that. All creation is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God, Romans 8:19. Waiting for us to be who we actually are and to get in place. So every step is intentional for us to be in that the revelation of who we are, so we can fit where we need to be in the kingdom. So we can waste a lot of time if we don't do that. So it says, so this is it. We want to, the church is built on that, like a clear picture of who we are and where we fit, not built on man's information, because man's information is untested theories of speculated information. So you can get a whole lot of, like Darwinism. Darwinism is really speculation. It's a theory. It's like, what is it? Theory of relativity. It's a theory. It's really, and at the time, you had all types of different things going on with Darwin and everybody else's. The Earth is flat. Well, no one had really proved it was flat. It was just a theory based on as far as they had gone, and the whole Rock of Gibraltar fits into this, because they were saying that was one of the ends. Where that was located was one of the ends of the earth. So once you get to that part, you'll fall over because it's flat. And then someone went a little further and discovered, you can just keep on going around this thing. It's not flat, it's round. But up to that point, people living like, man, you don't want to go too far in that ship. You may tip over. So if you got lost out to sea, they probably went too far and tipped over the edge. Right? But that's a theory. And so a lot of things that we hinge ourselves on when you hear stuff, growing up in school, you hear stuff in class and different friends tell you stuff, because you got people that are confident. So they'll be talking to you like this is how you're supposed to live life. And you'd be like, yeah, and like, some of us have been here a little longer, like parents would be like, oh, they tripping, man. This is how we rolling. But kids are theorists. They haven't experienced this. It just sounds good, And so you could be going with what sounds good, but as opposed to something that's tested. You know what I'm saying? So what is this? Let's go to 1 Corinthians 2. 1 Corinthians 2, verse 4 when I get there. 2. It says, in my speech, look, it says, verse 1, it says, and I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. So he says, I didn't come with a whole lot of book knowledge. He says, for I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. He says, I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. So I don't know what you need, but I have so much of fear of God. I want to make sure I yield to him to give you what you need, that revelation knowledge, that rock information. He says, my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, not in man's bottled up in man's intellect. He says, but in demonstration of power, that your faith should not stand. Your faith should not stand. Your faith should not be authenticated, lived out, and carried out in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. Your faith should not stand in information you can get from man. Your faith should stand in information that's revealed to you by God, like the information that was revealed by Peter. That's where your faith has to stand. Your faith can't hold up with man's information because man's information is so limited. And again, it's theory, it's speculation. It can only go but so far. So you know how you feel like stuff, over the years, me and my wife, we had a great conversation the other day, and we were just talking about some of the bad choices we've made. Some of it was because we were stupid, but some of it was because we was naive. We were just talking about some of the being unfortunate to not have consistent parenting. So, you've heard a lot of my testimony, but, having an opportunity to go to a math school, a boarding school, and I'm like, oh, they probably don't even have a basketball team. That's a theory. But that was it. The decision was made on me thinking that. Nobody was like, so why don't you want to go? You don't think you have a basketball team? Well, let's find out. It was like, okay. Now, maybe it was some other reasons why, because, I was awarded a state and they were getting paid, to keep me. I don't know. And that might not have been, it might have just been whatever's comfortable for you. Well, I really don't know. And I made a whole lot of decisions based on theory, based on assumptions. I didn't make my high school basketball team because I assumed they had enough people on the team. They got everybody already. And the coaches went around and said, well, where's Keith? I made a mistake one year in college the same way. Right, theory. I didn't vet it. It's all theories. And it can cost you 10, 15, 20 years on feelings and theories. Especially if you try to prove yourself right. You wrong. It's just comfortable for you. It's not best for you. And so you know how you just do stuff that's comfortable for you, not best for you, and then you try to live it out. Like some of the choices that you've adjusted and changed from, actually you was living that out. Like that you was rolling with that for a long time. And you was holding to your guns, but then truth kept knocking, going, how does what you are saying line up with me? Then God kept saying, how does what you're saying line up with what I purpose and I design? How does what you're doing fit in my plans? And it just kept knocking. So some people just keep running.
Thanks for tuning in to today's broadcast. To view videos or make donations, feel free to access our website at www.heirscc.org.